Hello and welcome to another episode of Noble, a platform that connects people through stories. One of the sermons by T.D. Jakes, he says that there is a kid in a king and there's a king in a kid. What he means by this is that until you heed to the kingly call by other people, you will never be the king that you're destined to be. You will remain operating on a kid mode and not the kingly mode. And here with me today, I have a personal story of a guy or my teacher who looked at me and saw the king in the kid. My early primary years, I was a very promising student. I was among the very top students. From maybe class 1, 2, and 3. But we got to an age where we had movies and we wanted to go to the movies. We want to, watch a lot of movies and escape school. Sometimes we would hide and go and watch movies. And so I started dropping. That is from class 4 to class 6. I was among the very bottom students, the bottom 10 to be for real. So there's a time that a new teacher came to our school. He was called Mr. Vincent Odongo. And I remember when he was appointed to be our class teacher, we became very close because I was a good composition writer. But there was a very big disconnect that he was not understanding, because I would write the best compositions. I would beat the best students in compositions, but he was not understanding how could I have this level of communication and yet be among the poorest performing students. So I remember the first time I was position 46 out of 57, and we had a very long discussion with him, and he told me it could be that your way of revising for exams or even how you take your studies is not working for you, because the level of communication that you have compared to how you perform in the classes is quite different. And he wasn't understanding it. And so we started on a journey of helping me. So we sat and he would help me in a number of subjects. We would spend sometimes the weekend to just go there, do a lot of consultations. And so the next time I was position 17 out of 57. That was a very huge leap. And we started the way you see that kind of progress in a student, and you sit down with them and you start telling them that you are on the right trajectory and therefore there is more that you need to do. But it was not his words that he spoke to me that changed everything. There is something that he wrote on my report form. Those days we had a report book. I hope they're still there. So he wrote this, just one sentence, that you are capable of topping the class. That comment was very scary to me, because I knew the top boys who were doing so well academically, guys who really know the reason why they were in school, people who took their work so seriously. And to be told that I could be at the top with them was quite a scary prophecy. But it, in a way, even without my understanding, propelled me to start performing better, because at the end of the term, I was able to be position 12 out of 57. So this meant that we were going to the class 7 on a very positive trajectory. And so in class 7, I started having conversations with my grandfather about this teacher who is helping me. And we made a pact that I was only going to move to class 8 with 300 marks. That if I failed to score 300 marks, he was not going to allow me to go to class 8, because he believed I needed to go there stronger than I was. Of course, the earlier years when I was performing so poorly, my grandfather was not very happy about it. He had never been a parent to a student who was performing poorly. And so to some way, when I started performing so poorly in class 4, he was really embarrassed, and he was always at pains to, just look at my report forms and give his opinion. He was the guy who was the kind of parent who would look at everything, look at your performance and ask you, why do you think you're not performing in this particular subject? And so I remember that in the third term, when we the final exams that takes you to the candidates class, I was position 13 out of 79, but the marks were only 215. And so my grandfather said this was a weak class, and therefore you didn't have a chance to go with it to class 8, to the final class. And so, because we had agreed on this, I decided to repeat the class. The last conversation about my performance that I had with Mr. Vincent Odongo was that this was your opportunity now to top the class, because you have all it takes. You've been here, and repeating this class is going to mean that you are stronger, and I trust you, and I believe in you, and I know you are the best student that we are ever going to produce in this school. I wasn't used to that kind of conversation. I wasn't used to stories of success of that kind. So everything was a bit scary. But trust you me, from that time, of course, I had the advantage of having repeated the class, but there are also many other students that had repeated the classes and were not performing so well. That was my moment of breakthrough in life that became part of me even in further areas of studies. I was the best student through and through, and during the final exam, I scored the record mark by then. And his prophecy in me became a reality, that I was going to be the best student that this school was ever going to produce. And of course, this was based on constant affirmations. When I went wrong or I did something wrong, he took it as a personal responsibility to correct me. When I didn't perform so well, he also took it very personal, and we could discuss which areas do you think you did not perform. So one that speaks to the support system that you can have of people who genuinely show care to you. But again, we go back to the story of the king in the kid. When I was wallowing down there, performing so poorly, this is one guy who looked at me, judging on the kind of compositions I was writing, and said, "You are capable of topping the class." And so many a times we take for granted what people tell you about you. There are those students we used to call professors. There are those students we used to call daktari. There are those students that we would look at and see something great. But many a times we don't really ask ourselves, why are these people giving me this kind of title, even when I am not there? Before I started coming to a space like this, before I started having the podcast, before I started venturing into opportunity like this, where I now come to your spaces to share human stories, I had my friend John Gora and Okoth Olande who constantly started telling me, you belong to the TV, you belong to something like a podcast, we want you there. And so I decided to do it, because many a times we forget or we ignore the affirmations and the kingly prophecies that people have in us. So I want you to listen to the names that your friends call you. I want you to heed to the kingly prophecies that often come your way. You could be called professor even before you get there. Some people could be calling you these names of greatness. Do you take your time to listen to the kingly call to the kid, or you're gonna remain the kid in the king forever?